Howdy again, my name is Zach, and today we're going to be reading from the Jack Tales. This is the first video in the series about the Jack Tales because it is the first chapter in the Jack Tales by Richard Chase. Now, this chapter is known as Jack and the Giant's New Ground. Now, before we get started, I think it's important to know what New Ground is. New Ground is essentially an area of land that you haven't yet expanded into. So it's like if you are a person who owns land, then it's the land you haven't actually started to clear yet, and you haven't cleared it of animals, people. So if it's your land, you want to clear it. That's what New Ground is. So when you get into the story, that's what we're talking about. This specific story is broken into 3 parts. I'll read each part individually and then place them into the full video. Enjoy. Let's start with the first chapter of Jack and the Giant's New Ground. Number 1, Jack and the Giant's New Ground. Part 1. One time away, back years ago, there was a boy named Jack. He and his folks lived off in the mountains somewhere, and they were awful poor. Just didn't have a thing. Jack had 2 brothers, Will and Tom, and they're in the sum of the Jack Tales, but this one I'm fixing to tell you now, there's mostly just Jack in it. Jack was awful lazy sometimes, just wouldn't do very lick of work. His mother and his daddy just kept trying to get him to help, but they couldn't do a thing with him when he took a lazy spell. Well, Jack decided one time he'd pull out from there and try his luck in some other section of the country. So his mother fixed him up a little snack of dinner and he put on his old rugged hat and lit out. Jack walked on, walked on. He ate his snack before he'd gone very far. The sun commenced to get awful hot. He traveled on, till he was plumb out of settlement where he knowed. Got to be about 12, the sun just beating down, and Jack started getting hungry again. He came to a fine, smooth road directly. Decided he'd take that, see where it went, what kind of folks lived on it. He went on, and pretty soon he came to a big fine stone house up above the road. Jack stopped. He'd never seen such a big house as that before. Then he looked at the gate, saw it was made out of gold. Well, Jack, lonesome, well-doing folks must live there, wondering whether or not they'd give him his dinner, stepped back from the gate and hollered, "Hello!" A man came to the door, says, "Hello, stranger. What do you have?" "I'm looking for a job of work." "Don't know as I need to hire anybody right now. What's your name?" "My name's Jack." "Come on up, Jack, and sit a spell. Ain't it pretty hot walking?" "Pretty hot," says Jack. "Come on up on the porch and cool off. You're not in no hurry, are you?" Jack says, "Well, I'll stop a little while, I reckon." Shoved back that gold gate and marched on in. The man reached in the door and pulled out a couple of chairs. Jack took one of them and leaned back, commenced to smoke it. Directly, Jack says to the man, "What'd you say your name was, mister?" "Why, Jack, I'm the king." "Well, now, king," says Jack, "it looks like you'd be needing somebody with all your land. I bet you got a heap of land to work." "Are you a hard worker, Jack?" "Oh, I'm the workingest one of all them back home." "You a good hand to plow?" "Yes, sir." "Can you clear new ground?" "Well, that's all I ever done back home." "Can you kill giants?" "Huh?" says Jack, and he dropped his pipe. Picked it up, says, "Well, I reckon I could try." The old king sort of looked at Jack, how little he was, said, "Well, now, Jack, I've got a little piece of new ground. I've been trying for the longest to get cleared. The trouble is there's a gang of giants lives over in the next holler. Been disputing with them about that claim. They kill every Englishman goes up there. Kill 'em and eat 'em. I reckon I've done hired a dozen men to claim to be giant killers. But the giants killed them, every last one." "Are these here giants very big uns?" asked Jack. "Well, they're about 6 times the size of a natural man, and there's 5 of 'em. The old man's got 4 heads, and his old woman's got 2. The oldest boy's got 2 heads, and then there's a set of twins that's got 3 heads apiece." Jack didn't say nothing, just kept studying about how hungry he was. King says, "Think you can clear that patch, Jack?" "Why, sure," says Jack. "All I can do is get killed or kill them one. All right, son. We'll make arrangements about the work after we eat. I expect my old woman's about got dinner ready by now. Let us go unto the table. Thank you, King, says Jack. I hope it won't put you out none. Why, no, says the king. It ain't much, but you're welcome to what we got. Well, Jack eat about all the dinner he could hold, but the king's old woman just kept piling up on his plate till he was plumb foundered. His dish set there, stacked up with chicken and cornbread and beans and greens and pie and cake, and the queen had done poured him milk for the third time. The old king leapt right on, and Jack didn't want him to think he couldn't eat as much as anybody else. So directly he reached down and took hold of the old leather apron he had on and doubled that up under his coat. Then he'd make like he was taking a bite, but he'd slip it down in that leather apron. He poured about 4 glasses of milk down there, too. Had to fasten his belt down so it'd hold. Well, directly the king pushed his chair back, and then he and Jack went on out and sat down again, leaned back against the house, and lit their pipes. King says to Jack, says, if you get that patch cleared, Jack, I'll pay you $1,000 apiece for every giant's head you bring down, and pay you good wages for getting that patch cleared. 10 cents an hour. Jack said that suited him all right, and he got the king to point him out which ridge it was. Then Jack says to the king, you say them giants live over in the other holler. King says they did. Jack says, can they hear you when you start hacking? They sure can, says the king. Jack didn't say nothing. King says to him, you don't feel uneasy now, do you, Jack? Why, no, bedad, says Jack. Why, I may be the very giant killer you've been looking for. I may not kill all of them today, but I'll try to get a start somehow. So the king told him he'd better get on to work. Said for him to go on out, past the wood pile, and get him an axe. Says, you might get in a lick or two before them giants come. You'll find a tree up there where their other men have knocked a couple of chips out of it. You can just start in on that same tree. So Jack started on out to the woodpile. The king watched him, saw him lean over and pick up a little old Tommy hatchet. Says, hey, Jack, you'll need the axe, won't you? Why, no, says Jack. This here'll do will be all right. He started on off, turned around, and says, I'll be back in time for supper. The old king just grinned and let him go. When Jack finally got up on the ridge, he was scared to death. He sat down on a log and studied a while. He knowed it if he started a cutting, them giants would come up there. And he knowed if he didn't, the king would have known he hadn't done no work, and he'd likely get fired and wouldn't get no supper. So Jack thought he'd about it some more. Then he picked out the tallest poplar he could see and clumb up to it, starting and chomping on the limbs way up at the very top. Hack, hack, hack. Heard a racket directly, sounded like a horse coming up through the brush. Jack looked down in the holler and saw a man about 30 foot high, coming a stomping up the mountain, stepping right over the laurel bushes and the rock cliffs. Jack was so scared he liked to slip his hold. The old giant came on up, looked around till he finally saw where Jack was sitting. Came over there under him, says, hello, stranger. Howdy do, Daddy. What in the world are you doing up there? I'm a clearing new ground, for that man lives back down yonder. Clearing land? Well, I never seen such a fool business. Starting clearing new ground on the top of a tree. Ain't you got no sense? Well, that's the always way we start clearing back home. What's your name, son? My name's Jack. Well, you look a here, Jack. That patch of land is ours, and we don't aim to have it cleared. We done told the king so. Oh, well then, says Jack, I didn't know that. If I'd known it, I'd not started. Come on down, Jack. I'll take you home to supper." Didn't think Jack know what he meant. Jack hollered back, says, "All right, Daddy, I'll be right down." Jack climbed down a ways, got on a limb right over the old giant's head, started talking on him, says, "Daddy, they tell me giants are awful stout. Is that so?" "Well, some," says the old giant. "I can carry 1,000 men before me." "Well, now, Daddy, I bet I can do something you can't do." "What's that, Jack?" "Squeeze milk out of a flint rock." "Ha! I don't believe so." "You throw me up a flint rock here, and I'll show you." So while the old giant hunted him down a flint rock, Jack took his knife and punched a little hole in that little leather apron. The giant chunked the rock up to him, and Jack squeezed down on it, pushed up against his apron, and the milk commenced to drain out. Drip, drip, drip. "Do it again, Jack." So Jack pushed right hard that time, and it just went like a milking a cow. The old giant hollered at Jack, says, "Throw me down that rock." He took the rock and squeezed, and finally he got so mad he mashed down on it. They tell me he crumbled that flint rock plumb to powder. Then Jack hollered down to him and says, "I can do something else you can't do." "What's that, Jack?" "I can cut myself wide open and sew it back up. And it won't hurt me none." "Oh, shucks, Jack. I know you're lying now." "You want to see me do it?" "Go ahead." Jack took his knife and ripped open that leather apron. Took a piece of string he had, punched some holes, and sewed it back up and says, "See, Daddy? I'm just as good as I ever was." Well, the old giant just couldn't stand to let Jack outdo him. So he hollered up and says, "Hand here that knife, Jack." Took Jack's knife and cut himself wide open, staggered around a little, and finally curled up on the ground dead. Well, Jack, he scaled down the tree and cut off the old giant's heads with a little Tommy hatchet, took him on back to the king's house. Part 2. The king paid Jack $2,000 like he said he would. Jack ate him a big supper and stayed the night. Next morning, after he'd ate his breakfast, Jack told the king he reckoned he'd have to be getting back home. Said his daddy would be needing him setting out tobacco. But the king says, "Oh no, Jack! Why, you're the best giant killer I ever hired. There's some more of that giant gang yet, and I'd like awful well to get shed of the whole crowd of them." Jack didn't want to do it. He figured he'd done made him enough money to last him a while, and he didn't want to get mixed up with them giants any more than he could help. But the king kept on after him till Jack saw he couldn't get out of it very handy. So he went, got the Tommy hatchet, started on up the Newground again. Jack hadn't hardly gotten up there before he heard something coming up the holler, stomping and on breaking brush, making the awfulest racket. He started to climb up a tree like he'd done before, but the racket was getting closer and closer. And Jack looked and saw it was them twin giants that had 3 heads apiece. Jack looked up, saw them 6 heads a-coming over the treetops, said, "Oh me, I can't stand that, I gotta hide." He saw a big holler log down the hill a ways, grabbed him up a shirt tail full of rocks, and shot in that log like a ground squirrel. It was pretty big inside there. Jack could turn right around in it. The old giants finally got there. Jack heard one of them say to the other, "Lord, look a yonder, somebody done killed brother." "Oh, yes. Now, who you reckon could have done that?" "Why, he could have carried 1,000 Englishmen before him, single-handed. I didn't hear no racket up here yesterday, did you?" "Why, no, and the ground ain't trumpled none either. Who in the world do you reckon could have done that?" Well, they mourned over him a while. Then they'd have to take him down and fix up a burying. So they got hold on him, one by the hands, the other by the feet, started on down. Poor brother, says one of them. If we knowed who it was that killed him, we'd sure fix him. The other stopped all at once, says, hold on a minute. There ain't a stick of wood in the house. Mother sent us up here after wood. We better not forget that. We'll have plenty of wood, too, setting up with brother tonight. We better get about the handiest thing we can find, says the other. Look yonder at that hollow log. Suppose we take that down. Well, they laid the old dead giant down across the top of that log and shouldered it up. Jack got shook around right considerably inside the log, but after he got settled again, he looked and saw the old giant in front had the log resting right betwixt his shoulders. And directly Jack happened to recollect he had all them rocks. So after they'd done gone down the holler a little piece, Jack, he picked him out a rock and cut drive at the giant in front. Thumped him right on the back of the head. Old giant stumbled and stopped and hollered back at the brother. Says, you look here! What are you throwing rocks at me for? I never throwed any rocks at you. You did so. You nearly knocked me down. Why, I never done that. They argued a while. Finally, they started on down again. Jack waited a minute or two, then he cut loose with another good-sized rock. You confounded thing, you done hit me again. I never done such a thing. You did too. I didn't touch you. You're the very one you needn't try to lie out of it neither. You can see as good as I there ain't nobody else around here to throw no rocks. You just hit me another time now, and I'll come back there and smack the fire out of you. They jawed and cussed a right smart while, till finally they quit and started down on the hill again. Well, this time Jack picked out the sharpest edged rock he had, drew back and clicked again, right in the same place. Pow! The old giant in front hollered so loud you could have heard him 5 miles. Throwed that log off his shoulders and just made for the other and says, that makes 3 times you've done rocked me, and you'll just have to take a beating from me now, or no, I can't do it. Them twin giants started in on fighting like horses kicking. Beat any fighter ever was seen, pinching, biting, and kicking and mauling one another, made a noise like splitting rails. They fit and scratched and fit till they couldn't stand no more. Got to tumbling around on the ground, knocking down trees and kicking up dirt and rocks. They were clinched so tight couldn't neither one break loose from the other. And directly they were so wore out, they just lay there all tangled up in a pile, both of them panting for breath. So when Jack saw there wasn't no danger in 'em, he crawled out from the log and chopped off their heads, put 'em in a sack, and pulled 'em on the back to the king's house. Part 3. Well, the old king paid Jack $6,000 for that load of heads. Then Jack said he just had to get on home. Said his folks would be uneasy about him, and besides, they couldn't get the work done up unless he was there. But the king says to him, why, Jack, there ain't but 2 more of 'em now. You kill 'em up for me and I'll wind 'em up. Then we won't have no trouble at all in that Newground. Jack said he'd see what he could do. Went on back that same evening. This time, Jack didn't climb any trees or nothing. Went to work making him a brush pile. Made all the racket he could. The old 4-headed giant come up a tearing up there in no time. Looked around, saw the other giants laying there dead. Came over to where Jack was and says, hello, stranger. Hello yourself. What's your name, buddy? My name's Jack, Mr. Jack. Well, Mr. Jack, can you tell me how come all my boys laying here dead? Yes, bedads, I can tell you, says Jack. They came up here cussing and busting me, and I had to haul off and kill 'em. You just try and sass me in every bit now, and I'll kill you too. Oh, pray, Jack, don't do that. There's only me and the old woman left now, and she's got to have somebody to get in her stove wood and put up her water. You better be careful about what you say then. I ain't going to take nothing off nobody." "Well, now, I don't want to have no racket with you at all, Mr. Jack. You come on down and stay a night with us, help set us up with our dead folks, and we'll get fixed to have a burying tomorrow." "Well, I'll go," says Jack, "but you better sure watch out what you say." "Oh, I'll not say nothing," says the old giant. Says, "Law, Jack, you must be the awfullest man." So the old giant stuck the dead uns under his arm, and he and Jack started on down. When they got close to the house, the giant stopped and says to Jack, "Now, Jack, you better wait until I go and tell the old lady you've come down for supper. She might cut a shine. She'll be mad enough already about her boys being killed." He went on in and shut the door. Jack slipped up and laid his ear on the keyhole so he could hear what they said. Heard him tell the old lady, says, "I've got Jack here, claims to be a giant killer. I found the boys up yonder at the Newground with their heads cut off, and this here Jack says he's the one who done it." The old woman just carried on. Finally, the old giant got her hushed and said, "He don't look to me like he's so stout as all that. We'll have to test him out a little and see whether he's bad as he claims he is." Directly, Jack heard him coming to the door, rattling buckets. So he stepped back to the house and made like he was just coming up. The old giant come out and says, "There ain't a bit of water up, Jack. The old woman wants you and me to tote her up some from the creek." Jack saw he had 4 piggins as big as wash tubs, had rope bales fixed on them, and had them slung on one arm. So they went on down to the creek, and the old giant set the piggins down, stove up his 2 in, and got 'em full and started on back. Jack knowed he couldn't even tip one of them things over and hit empty, so he left his 2 piggins laying there, way down in the creek, and started rolling up his sleeves. The old giant stopped and looked back, saw Jack spit in his hands and start feeling around under the water. "What in the world are you fixing to do, Jack?" "Well, Daddy," says Jack, "just as soon as I can find a place to catch a hold, I'm going to take the creek back up there closer to the house, where your old woman can get her water everywhere she wants it." "Oh, no, Jack, not take the creek back. It'll ruin my cornfield. Besides that, my old lady's getting sort of shaky on her feet. She might fall in and get drowned." "Well, then," says Jack, "I don't want to be wasting my time talking back with 2 little bitty bucketfuls. Why, I'd not want to be seen toting such little buckets as them." "Just leave 'em there, then, Jack. Come on, let's go back to the house. Mind now, you come on in here and leave the creek where it's at." When they got back, he told the old woman what Jack had said. Says, "Why, law me, I had a time getting him to leave that creek alone." Came on out again, told Jack supper wasn't ready yet. Said for him to come up on and they'd play pitch crowbar till it was time to eat. They went on down to the level field. The old giant picked up a crowbar from the fence corner. It must have weighed about 1,000 pounds. Says, "Now, Jack, we'll see who can pitch the crowbar the furthest. That's a game me and the boys used to play." So he heaved it up, pitched it about 100 yards, and says, "You run and get it now, Jack. See if you can pitch it back here where I'm at." Jack ran to where it fell, reached down and took hold of it. Looked up way past the old giant, put his hand up to his mouth, and hollers, "Hey, Uncle! Hey, Uncle!" The old giant looked all around and says, "What are you calling me an uncle for? I ain't calling you. Hey, Uncle! Who you hollering at, Jack?" "Well, I got an uncle over in Virginia," says Jack. "He's a blacksmith, and this old crowbar would be the very thing for him to make up his horseshoes. Iron's mighty scarce over there. I thought I'd just pitch this out there to him. Hey, Uncle!" "Oh, no, Jack. I need that crowbar. Pray don't pitch it over into Virginia." "Well, now," says Jack, "I can't be bothered with pitching it back there just to where you are. If I can't pitch it where I want, I'll not pitch it at all. Leave it laying, Jack. Come on, let's go back to the house. You turn loose of my crowbar now. They got back. The giant went in and told his old woman he couldn't find out nothing about Jack. Said for her to test him a while. Says, I'll go after firewood. You see, can't you get him in the oven against I get back so we can eat? Went on out, says to Jack, I gotta go get a turn of wood, Jack. You can go in the house and get ready for supper. Jack went on in, looked around, didn't see a thing a cooking. And there sat a big old-fashioned clay oven with red hot coals all across it, and a lid laying to one side. The old giant lady came in at him, had a wash rag in one hand and a comb in the other. Says, Come here now, Jackie, let me wash you up and comb you for supper. You no need to bother, says Jack, I can wash. Oh, Jack, I always did my own washing of my own boys before supper. I just want to treat you like one of my boys. Thank you, ma'am, but I generally wash and comb myself. Oh, please, Jack, you'd let me wash you a little now and comb your head. Come on, Jackie, sit up here on this shelf so's I don't have to stoop over. Jack looked up and saw that shelf was right on one side of the big dirt oven. He clumb up on the scaffold, reckled and reeled this way and that away. The old woman kept trying to get at him with the rag and comb, but Jack kept on teetering around until he slipped off on the wrong slide. He clumb back up and he rockled and reeled some more. The old woman told him, says, Sit straight now, Jack. Lean over this way a little. Sakes alive, don't you know how to sit on a shelf? I never tried sitting on such a board before, says Jack. I don't know what you mean. You get down from there a minute. I reckon I'll have to show you. She started to climb up there on the scaffold now. Says, You put your shoulder under it, Jack. I'm a mite heavy and I'm liable to break it down. Jack put his shoulder under the far end, and when the old woman went on to turn around and sit, Jack shoved up right quick, fetched her spring in the oven, grabbed him on a handspike, and prized the lid on him. Then he went and hid behind the door. Old giant came in directly. Heard something in the oven just crackling up, popping. Old woman! Hey, old woman! Jack's a burning! When she didn't answer, the old giant finally lifted the lid off, and there was his old lady, just about baked done. Says, Well, I'll be confounded. That's not Jack. Jack stepped out from behind the door and says, No, it sure ain't, and you better mind out, or I'll put you in there too. Oh, pray, Jack, don't put me in there. You got us licked, Jack. I'm the only one left now, and I reckon I'll better leave this country for good. Now you help me get out of here, Jack, and I'll go off to some other place, and I'll promise not to never come back here no more. I'll sure you like to help you, Daddy, but I don't think we got time now. It's too late. Too late? Well, how come, Jack? The king told me he was going to send an army of 2,000 men down here to kill you this very day. They ought to be here any minute now. 2,000? That many will kill me sure. Well, what do I do? Pray, Jack, hide me somewhere. Jack saw a big chest there in the house. Told the old giant to jump in that. Time he got in and Jack fastened the lid down on him, Jack ran to the window and made out like the army was a coming down the holler. Says, Yonder there they come, Daddy. Looked to me like 3,000. I'll try to keep 'em off, though. You keep right still now, and I'll do my best not to let 'em get you. Jack ran outside the house and commenced to make a terrible racket, banging a stick on the walls, rattling on the windows, shouting and a hollering and making out like he was a whole army. Finally, he ran back to the house, knocked over the table and 2 or 3 chairs, said, You quit that now and get on out of here. I've done killed that old giant. No use of you breaking up them chairs. He ain't here, I tell you. Then Jack did tumble over some more chairs and throwed the dishes around considerable, and says, You all leave them things alone now, for I have to knock some of you down. Then he'd run by the chest and beat on it, and says, He ain't in there, you all leave that chest alone. He's dead just like I told you. Now you men march right on back to the king and tell him I done got shed of them giants and there ain't airy one of them left. Well, Jack finally made like he'd done run the army off. let the old man out of the chest. He was a-shaking, says Jack. I sure do thank you for not letting all them men find out where I was at. So Jack took the old giant on down to the depot, put him on a freight train, and they hauled him off to China. King paid Jack $2,000 for baking the old giant lady, but he said he couldn't allow him nothing on the old giant because the trade they'd made was that Jack had to bring back in the heads. Jack didn't care nothing about that because his overall pockets were just a bulging with money when he got back home. He didn't have to clear out Newground for the king neither. He paid his brothers, Will and Tom, to do it for him. And the last time I went down to see Jack, he was doing real well. The end. That's the end of Jack and the Giant's Newground. Thanks for listening on this video about Jack the Jack Tales. So if you're interested in hearing another Jack Tale, I've got a whole book of them. This is just one of the stories that are in this book that are really wild and really unique. So if you're interested in seeing more, subscribe to the channel and find out more to see my next video being posted. If you're interested in more information about this book series, you can check out the description below. It'll tell you more about the series itself and the author, as well as where you might can find the book online. But until next time, see you later.